It all started about 1.5 years ago when my friend Max gave me the DVD of the first season of AMC's critically acclaimed crime drama series Breaking Bad for Christmas. Unknowingly what to expect, I started watching its first episode later that day and really enjoyed it. 2 weeks later I had watched all the 62 episodes of Breaking Bad, owned the Blu-ray box of the complete series and felt like the biggest fan in the world. Anyway, when I came to England for my year abroad some month ago, a teacher who knew about my love to Breaking Bad recommended me a store in London called Forbidden Planet, which is a big science fiction, fantasy and cult entertainment merchandising retailer. So as I went to London, a few days later Forbidden Planet was the first point on my to-do list. I found the store after a short hunt, and at the moment I first entered it, my obsession with merchandising began. Today, 6 months later, I own about 40 collectible figures, keychains, badges and plenty of geeky shirts. However, before I'm going to tell you more about my merchandising obsession, I have to explain you the concept of merchandising. There are different definitions of merchandising for different areas, but I will talk about merchandising in terms of marketing and licenses by trademark brand names. In marketing, one of the definitions of merchandising is the practice in which the brand or image from one product or service is used to sell another. Trademark brand names, logos or character images are licensed to manufacturers of products such as toys or clothing, which then make items in the image of the license, hoping they'll sell better than the same item with no such image. Nowadays, there's a huge amount of different merchandising for children, which is mostly seen in connection with films, television shows and games oriented towards children. The most known source of merchandising for children is the owner of the so-called happiest place on earth, Mauswitz. Disneyland. It's Disney. Disney stores worldwide extend the Magic Kingdom into almost every household, making Mickey Mouse potentially the most identifiable character in the world, more recognizable than popes or presidents. Disney's merchandising success ensures that their fictions emblazon a million nighties and quilt covers together with lunchboxes and school bags. But there's also merchandising for adults, related to adult-oriented films, TV shows, professional sports teams and more. The success in the late 1970s of the first 3 Star Wars films gave an object lesson in strategic merchandising for adults and children. Star Wars products were made available to suit every income, mass market as well as collectible exclusives. Especially action figures became mass products. By the time the second trilogy began filming in the late 1990s, the new merchandising was already in full swing and there were action figures in the shops long before The Phantom Menace was in the cinema. The Phantom Menace is, by the way,
the worst thing ever made by a human, except for the bagpipes,
in the opinion of the film critic Mr. Plinkett. Star Wars director George Lucas was accused of not caring about anything while producing the Star Wars prequels except for trying to shovel in as many things as he could make into toys or video games as possible, because he created so many new characters without background stories or purposes which affect the plot of the story. And this way capitalism converts the stock and trades of various fictions into consumer goods, proving that everything can be sold. It's all about the money. But why do people buy or collect merchandising? Firstly, you need to know that I'm going to distinguish between people who only buy some merchandising occasionally and people who actually collect a specific kind of merchandising in the following. In general, it can be stated that people buy merchandising because they love fiction. The French theorist Jean Baudrillard argues that many people love fiction so much that they are more interested in it than in reality. They say, "Oh dear," when they see news reports about thousands of people who died through bombings in Syria, but cry when, spoiler alert, Han Solo dies in the newest Star Wars sequel. People buy merchandising because it connects the unreal fictions they love with the real world, as fictional texts are linked to saleable objects through merchandising. This approach includes the packaging of fictions as objects of desire in their own right. Stephen Fry argues that adults get infantilized through their love to fictions and merchandising. Infantilism is the problem, it's just shocking. The only dramas the BBC will shout about are fictions like Doctor Who and Merlin. They are wonderful programs, don't get me wrong, but they are not for adults. Even toys stop being a privilege of children. There are many merchandising fans who especially collect toys like action figures, Lego sets, or in my case 4-inch tall collectible figures called Funko Pop vinyls. Funko is an American company that manufactures licensed pop culture toys and is most known for producing over 1,000 different licensed vinyl figures. As I said earlier, I own about 40 of these figures, and my favorite pieces of my collection are my Heisenberg in the blue crystal edition, my Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, and my Sheldon Cooper from my favorite sitcom The Big Bang Theory. Anyway, back to infantilism. Although I'm only 17 years old and many people still denote 17 years olds as children, people are always surprised and especially startled when I tell them about my toy collecting. It just doesn't fit in with their teenager stereotype because they think that toys are childish and teenagers just spend their life on social networks and parties. Therefore, toy collectors are immediately labeled as childish and infantilized by the majority of society. But why do people like me collect merchandising like toys, for example? This question can be answered easily by looking at the concepts of value and representation. In my opinion, the primary reason for collecting any toy should be that you love it, regardless whether you love it because it conjures sweet childhood memories or because it's based on a film you like. But you shouldn't just love the toy, you should love the whole hobby of collecting, which includes seeking, locating, acquiring, organizing and displaying your toys. The value of a toy should be a secondary concern, a nice comfort just in case the car fails the MOT, for example. Nowadays, unfortunately, many people just collect toys because of the value. They buy toys, keep them in their boxes and store them for many years, trusting that they will become rare collectible items with high value someday to resell them for a lot of money. A suitable example of this is the Star Wars merchandising again. When the first Star Wars toys were released in the 70s, they were just toys. Thousands of parents bought them for their children, who unpacked them and played with them. Thereby, the number of Star Wars toys who were in their original undamaged packaging decreased over time. Today, the few figures who are still in their original boxes are valuable collectibles. The vinyl-cloaked Java Star Wars figure from 1977 is one of these collectibles. There are only 6 known pieces left in the world and one sold for £10,200 at a Tennessee auction in 2014. Anyway, when the merchandising of the new Star Wars film The Force Awakens was released last year, many people bought the figures, spaceships, Lego sets and more and kept them in their boxes because they predicted the toys will gain in value like the Star Wars toys from the 70s did before. But the toys won't become rare or gain in value this time because there are just too many figures in their boxes since so many people had the same idea. Another reason why people collect merchandising is representation. Representation is the social progress of representing. The collections of many people, no matter whether they collect merchandising, stamps or cars, represent a part of who they really are, of their identity. Some people's collections represent their social status, like rich people who buy expensive cars and jewelry. Others collect things like books that represent their literacy. In my case, my collection represents my love to fictions. Every single figure of mine has a personal meaning for me. It doesn't just remind me of the movie I like, it also reminds me of the moment I watched the movie, of the moment I bought the figure, and of the moment I showed it to my friends and put it in my shelf. Every single figure represents a short story of my life. My collection also represents my attempt to keep the child in me alive. Sometimes when I'm tired of the stressful world of the grown-ups, I just go in my room, look at my toys and feel like a child again because, as John Piaget said, the most important thing in life is to stay in part a child with the creativity and invention that characterizes children before they are deformed by adult society. Thank you very much.